we're in our, what we call our equipment yard here, and you can see we got a bit of it. I could take some shots. There's a lot. There's stuff that we use a lot still, and there's stuff that's been parked because we've updated to newer equipment. So this is a planting machine here. It's a plug planter. This is a spare machine in case something breaks down. We've got it ready to go. It's a 3-row. We plant broccoli and cabbage in this system. You know what? This is a transplanter. We designed a tank system on it for water. We plant our strawberries, so we plant them on hill strawberries, and we designed this at 1 row, and it plants our June bearings. It really works good because we carry the water with us all the time, and you can disconnect and use the tractor for something else. So this is an interesting one. This is a vacuum seeder. We plant our pumpkins and squash with this. You could probably do a few other things, but it's designed 8 feet apart because you know what, they have to have runners, so they have runners and they need to be spaced out so you get the bigger pumpkins. So it's a vacuum, basically it creates vacuum, and the seeds go into a hopper, and the vacuum picks it up and it drops it at the right time, so it's spaced out properly. So it's a tool. You know what, these are very important tools to us. Without these, it would cost us more for seeds, more for planting, and more time. This is like one guy can go out there and seed 10 acres in an hour, 2 hours, and we're done. So that's a great tool. This one here is interesting, guys. This one here is a subsoiler. What we do with this is, because we farmed for so many years, we create compaction in our soils, and compaction is not good for drainage. It's not good for plant growth. The plants don't work right in tight soil, especially when you get these heavy rains too. It tightens up these grounds. Then we drive in them, of course, when we harvest with tractors, so it really compacts soils. So what this does, this will go down probably 1.5 to 2 feet sometimes, depending on the soil. We don't want to go more than about 1.5 feet really. And we break the bottom. We bring the bottom up, we bust it. And then over the winter, the frost does the rest, because the frost will get in there and it'll actually break the ground up, and it'll make it much more nicer. And the water's in the, so you get better drainage. And if you get better drainage, you get better growth on your plants. So that's a very important tool also. Moving on, we got all sorts of discs here. We have all kinds of different sizes. It's a tilling equipment. So we disc down, usually discs if we have lots of weeds, or if we're finished with a crop, we will disc down the field. We'll chop it, basically chopping it all up. And then we let it sit for a week, 10 days. Sometimes we recrop, sometimes we don't. Depends on the time of year. Sometimes early stuff we can recrop for a second crop, and so you need to mash that stuff up, get it chopped up fine so it breaks down into the ground. It becomes fertilizer again, so it's really good for the ground, but it's got to be done right, or else your next planter won't be able to go in properly. And then that being said, we have this is my favorite tractor. This is my tractor. I do all the cultivating. I prepare all the land before planting and make sure the land is at top notch, because you know what's very important, that the soils when we go into plant have to be to my expectations, which is pretty well perfect. They got to be flat, they got to be level, and they got to be worked up, at least 2 to 3 inches, and even 5 inches sometimes. It's even great, of nice loamy soil, so that plant goes in, it never looks back. You want it to go forward. We give it a little bit of water, and away it goes. So this is my 7330. These things are comfort. They're an excellent tractor. I got 150 horsepower here, and you know what? Air conditioning, air ride on the seat. It's like sitting in your living room pretty well. Only thing I'm missing is the TV set, but you know what? It's great. So we can do 10, 12, even 14 hours of work in these tractors. At my age, that's important that or else you come out of there like a stiff board. But yeah, thank God we got this equipment, and we've moved on. We've got other tractors that we used to do. I couldn't do it in there. I could do an hour or two, and then I'd have to get out, man, and just stretch out, because it's just too stiff of a tractor. These are phenomenal tractors. Back here, this is a cultivator. This is what I do with that 7330. I run the cultivator, and you can see I was out there this morning. Say this is weeds. This is what it does. It actually takes the weeds out. And you know what? I'm going to show you guys something. How good of a job it does. Look at that. We got the roots out too, and that's what you want. You don't want to break these things. That's what the discs will chop. We don't want to chop. That's why we try not to use the disc before planting. We want to do this. We want to pull these roots out so that they die in the ground and that they don't start all over again. You know what? And it's been a dry season, so things are dying out there with these weeds. But this cultivator, this is what we use to break up the ground, level it off, and we want to come further back. So these are harrows back here, and the harrows will basically level off any of the hooks that I put into the ground. It makes it much more leveler, and it also pulls up any of the weeds. It actually pulls it out, which makes them get dry, and they will die even better. At the end we put this packer here, okay, and it just helps us seal the ground a little bit. If there's any lumps, it helps breaking them, and it just does a much better job, and it gets everything level. And you know what, it works great. So we pull these things one's behind the other, and it does an amazing job. Again, it's got to be dry to use this packer. If it's wet at all or any kind of wetness, these things start to get clogged up and they don't work very well. So this year they're working very well because everything is super dry. But here's a bunch of other toys that I have. These aren't really toys, they're really, you know, they're 1945, 49 tractors. So I'm going to show you guys this stuff because we have a collection of these and they all work. I've rebuilt them all, every engine. If they need tranny work, we've done it. And these are all Super A's. We have 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are cultivating tractors. Same thing I said about the Cub. These are a little bit bigger. They're 25 horsepower. These tractors are built, the Super A's were built around the 45 to 49, 1950. So they're older than me. I was born in 57. So they're worth, but you know what? These things, they don't build them anymore. And if I find them, I rebuild them and I bring them in because they actually cultivate. Because you can't pay people to hoe. And you guys know what hoeing means. You got to get the weeds and open up the grounds. These harder type grounds that we grow on, mineral soils, which are the best growing soils for flavor and quality. And you need to open up these grounds and let the roots go down looking for that moisture, because we have natural moisture in the bottom. And that's what these things do. So we'll scuffle, we call it scuffling. We'll go through the rows a couple of times a year and mixes up the soil, and we bring up the moisture from the bottom, and the roots just get deeper and your plants get bigger and stronger. Because remember, plants only grow when roots are moving. They don't grow with water. Realistically, they don't. Water is a necessity of life, and they need it also. But too much water, they just get lazy, and they'll die and rot there eventually if you just keep watering. So it's very important that we open up that ground. If we do get heavy rains, we keep scuffling, at least the first 6 to 8 weeks of their startup life. And what happens is that we want the roots to go down, and then they're on their own. It could happen whatever. These plants will never go backwards because they become real strong in the ground. That's what these tractors do. And today, guys, nobody does this anymore. We're still doing it here. This is the way my father taught me how to grow. And this is why there's no growers left in this Markham area with these heavy clays, because it's tough to grow here. So everybody's gone to the Western Ontario there, Windsor, Leamington, Delhi, the sandy loams, the light sand, beach sand on some of them. And they don't use these tractors. Very rarely they do. I'm not saying some of them don't, but they just basically grow with water and fertilizer. That's what makes a difference here. Our flavors and quality all comes from the natural soils, but we need to work those grounds so the roots keep moving and get deeper into that ground. And that's what makes the quality of this area. If you guys haven't tried the broccolis, cauliflowers, strawberries that we grow here, everything just from the mineral soils, the clay soils that are here, they're phenomenally tasted. It's all natural sugars. We don't add anything to make those sugars. So just another update. But this is really good. This is really good stuff, guys. And I got 5 of them. And if I can find another 5, I'll buy another 5. Those tractors, people look and say, what the hell is this? They're really a very important tool on this farm. Very important tool. Okay, so this here, guys, this is one of our irrigation reels. This is one of our older models. We have another one here. We have 2. We have actually about 5 reels on this farm right now. We're running out of water with this drought. The springs are drying up, the ponds are drying up. But what this does is it's a reel. We actually pull it out in between the rows, and these things will shoot about 200 to 300, depending on the pressures and the size of the gun, one way and 300 feet the other way. So that's quite a span, and it brings itself back automatically. We set the speed on how much water we want. That speed will determine how much water. We want a half an inch, 1 inch, an inch and a half. And you know what, that determines how fast we bring it back. So that being said, you know what, you can set it up, make sure everything's working right, and go to bed. And you could wake up in the morning if you figure out how many hours it's going to take, and you go back and then go shut your pump off. So they're very, very great tools. These are very important, especially with this kind of weather. And not only we have to have a pump that pumps the water to these, so there's a lot more to this. This is just the gun that goes in the field. We pull the hose. You can see the hoses on here. Okay, you pull the hose out, and it's just a lot easier, and it reels itself back in. It's so economical. We don't save so much labor. In the old days, we used to have irrigation pipes. We used to just carry the pipes into the next station, and it was a lot more. And you'd have to go there every hour or 2 hours and move all these pipes. So this thing here goes on its own. You just you set them up. You set your time. If you think you're going 50 feet a minute, you do the math, and you come back in an hour, 2 hours, or 4 hours, or 8 hours, depending on how big your field is. And it should be at the end of the row. You go shut your water off, and you can go back to bed if you want. So very important tool. You can take a video of these wagons here. These are all harvest wagons. Mike wants to take a picture of these, and we'll show you these later on in the season when we start harvesting cauliflower and cabbage. These harvest wagons, we call them the airplanes. We open up the back like wings, and the guys pack, and the wagon is going through the field real slow, and they're picking and packing right in the field, making sure they don't bring any bad stuff home and nothing goes, and it's a great job, saves us a ton of labor. We don't have to bring the products home to pack. And later on in the year, in the season, we're going to start cauliflower probably in a week. We will show you and maybe do a video on how they're doing this. It's really pretty ideal. Saves a ton of labor, guys. It's all about labor. You got to remember, the only way we can be competitive and in order for people still to afford these products with the labor rates in this country is that we have to bring in this equipment. This is very important for us. All these equipments are very important so that we can produce at a cheaper cost, which hopefully we can make a profit from that. That's the key here, is trying to make a profit.